Hello, welcome to Cypress Automation Testing. Today we'll be looking at locators in Cypress. And for quick, for us to move faster, I've been able to bring out what we'll be looking at today. So you can see the topic, Cypress locators. Now, for us to be able to, you know, assign a task to Cypress and say, hey, Cypress, go to so website and go to so page, carry out a particular function, we must be able to locate an element or a section from the website, and tell Cypress, okay, I want you to go to so place and go and carry out that particular function. If not, Cypress will not be able to do anything. So that is why locators is very, very important in Cypress. And once you are able to get your selectors, then you are good to go. That is just the honest truth. So as seen here, I wrote down here that Cypress only supports CSS selectors. Of course, that is just the honest truth. If you're familiar with Selenium, you understand that Selenium also supports experts. But in Cypress, apart from CSS selector that yes, Selenium supports, Selenium also supports expert. But in Cypress, Cypress only supports CSS selectors, and CSS selectors can be gotten in different ways, which I have listed below. So the first on our list here is by using Ivy. I'm going to go to our website, which we are going to go. But first and foremost, we have to open this our folder on our working environment, which is Visual Studio Code. I've already opened mine. You can just open yours in Visual Studio Code. If you watched our previous videos, you've seen how that can be done. So I don't just want to start wasting most of our time. Now, I did mention that we'll be using demo QA, which we used yesterday to actually see how we can visit website. And in our first video, I also said I will be using um, an e-commerce website. So this is the e-commerce website we'll be using to carry out our test, sourcedemo.com. So actually for today's test, this is the one we use is the demo QA. So I will be using both of them. But the little challenge with demo QA is sometimes the server goes down. So that's one of the little challenge. So most often I'll be using this website, sourcedemo.com. So today we're actually going to make use of this, and if need be, we'll still come here and make use of this. So today we'll be looking at locators, as I said earlier, and how we're going to do that is the first selector we'll be looking at is using ID. And how do you get your ID in Cypress? Now, let me take you to I want actually to carry out a test. I want to type John Doe here, using Cypress. That is a test. I want to make sure that this field, something input can enter this field. And for me to carry out this test, something has to be typed here in Cypress. And how do we do that? Now, I need to get a locator here. I need to locate this input field. And how you do that is to come here, get to inspect, and then use this your picker. Just come here, pick, and target this field, which is actually our target. Now, once you hit that, you see that here is going to highlight. Here is going to highlight. Now, what is happening here now is that everything on this input field is done here, is written here. So I said that you can get your selector via ID. You see it? This is ID. And if you look at here, luckily we have ID here. We have ID. So all we don't need to do is to use this ID. Highlighting it. You just highlight it, copy, and then use it. Now there's something we're going to get, crew parts. Sorry, crew parts. Crew parts for Firefox. If you're using Chrome, just look for crew parts for Chrome. And it's an extension that we'll be using to work. So this is it, crew parts. And then once you click, it's an extension. So once you just click it, it's going to come here. Here it's asking me to remove because I already have the extension. So once here on your own side, you'll be adding, and we're going to be using it. Now, come back to where we are working on our testing. So once you install it, you see it here. Look at it, crew parts. Now, for me to be able to get my Selenium to test it, I'm actually not using it to get it, but to test that what I've gotten is accurate. So I'll just use, now for you to use your ID, you use your hashtag. Then whatsoever we have here, we have user hyphen name, enter. you see that it highlighted only username. Now let me just remove this E so that you see it well. It's nothing, there's nothing like this. So if I put it back now, you see that E, because I've removed the E now, the highlight is gone. It's telling me that I have zero element matching. There's nothing like this user hyphen name. So if I bring this E back now, hit enter, it has highlighted the username, showing me one element matching. So this is a CSS selector using ID. So we're going to put this here now. So here now we'll come and say that for us to get our ID, we use hash ID name. Sorry, ID name. Now in this case, we have this. The second is using a class. And if you're using a class, for ID we use this hashtag. Why for ID you use dot. Now you go and check and look for a class. If it has here, it has a class. Now we'll now look at this class. If you look at this class, you see that it has two different classes. One, input error, then space from input. You're not going to use the two, you just take one. If you have three classes, just pick one. So we'll just use maybe the first one. Look at this first one. And then we'll come here and see if truly it is working. You see, I said here you use dot, then the class, enter. Fine. Now look at what happened here. It has highlighted two sections, two input field for me. What is telling me here is that this input error is also found as a class in password. Now let's look at it. Let's confirm that. Let me click on password. You see, look at class, input error. Why ID? You see password. But ID for username is not password, but username. So this is actually where Crowpat becomes handy. It tells you how many elements that is matching in whatsoever you are using, the selector you are using. So if the selector is unique, it's going to tell you that, hey, this selector is unique. It's just one element matching. And if it's not one element matching, it's more than one element matching, then you might have to leave that selector because you just want, now if I want to work on this and I'm using that class, I'm using class, invariably Cypress will be working with these two input field because this input error underscore error is actually going on two input fields. So ID here is our best option. So this is how you select class. But of course, there are a lot of classes that are unique. But unfortunately for this one is not unique. It has two element matching. Now the next is, so what do you do here? It's a dot class name. And here, what do we have? We have dot input error. That's what we're using. Now the next one here is using tag names. Now look at it. Here you have your tag name. The tag name here, we have the input as our tag name. So you can see that everything here is embedded inside this tag name input. You can see after the input you have space, you have ID, you have class, you have placeholder, and all that. All of these they are all embedded inside this tag name. So we can also use the tag name to get our selector. And how do we do that? If we're using tag name with ID, then we have to use the tag name hashtag and then the ID. What do I mean? Look at this, input, hashtag, then the ID. What is the ID? User hyphen name. Now look at what happens. Let me click enter. It goes back to select just this. Now there are some situations where you actually need to use all of this. For here, this is just, of course, this is just for, um, you know, explanatory sake. But when we go into real life scenarios, there are situations where you just have to use this. This is what is available for you and you have to use it. So for here, now if this is for ID, if you're actually using for class, what happens? Your guess is as good as mine. You just say dot, what is our class name? Input. Let me just come here and copy it. Input error. Now look at it. It goes back. It has picked it again. So that is for tag name. Now the next on our list is, so what do we actually write here? We'll put, I'm going to say tag name. Let me see. For ID, you say tag name hash ID name. Y for class, we'll say tag name dot class name. So this is actually how you use your tag names. Now the next is, of course, you're going to practice all of this, you know. So, but I just have to give you the introduction. Now the next is using attributes. And for that to happen, all you just need to do is to say tag name, square bracket, you open your square bracket, and then you put your attribute value. What do I mean? Now let's come back here. Tag name, which is input. If you look at here, you see that our tag name here is input. And now what is attribute? Of course, here, class is an attribute, placeholder is an attribute, type is text is an attribute, you know. So we can just, let's assume there's no ID, there's no class. It happens, you know, in some field. And what we have here, we just have input, placeholder, username. So we can say, okay, fine. Since there's no class, there's no ID, we use the tag name, open your square bracket, and then placeholder. Just the way you see it here, just copy everything. That is it. Because the instruction says tag name attribute equal to the value. What is the attribute here? The attribute is placeholder equal to the value. The value of this attribute, the value of the placeholder is username. So that just, you just put it, and then you close your square bracket. What did I put? So sorry. Now enter. You see it has taken just this. So that is the format. So say here, let's write it down. Here you say tag name, open your square bracket, attribute equal value. Then you close your square bracket. So that's it for using attributes. And the next on our list is traversing from parent to child. Now we're going to show that here too. How do you traverse from parent to child? Now what do we mean by actually traversing from parent to child? Now you see, if you look at this, you see that this input is actually a child of this div, which is a child of this form. So we can just move, what we're saying is move, that is to say that form is a parent of this input. So for us to transverse from parent to child, all we just need to do is to use their tag names. That's all. So now look at what happened here. What is the parent tag name? The parent tag name is form. So I put form. And then I'll give a space. You give a space to the child tag name. What is the child tag name here? Input, which we've been working with. So I'll put input. Now look at what happens. It has highlighted everything that has to do with this input value. Remember that this input value carries all of this. Oh, sorry, this, yes, of course, which is the tag name for the child, carries all of this. So you can actually transverse from parent to child in Cypress. Now, I wouldn't want you to be more confused. We will actually get our hands dirty, but I just wanted to get the introduction that, see, these things, this is how these things are done. When we start working with them, you get a better understanding of how they are done. So for this, we're going to say that you use your tag names. Now the next is contains. Now for this contain, let's use this demo QA for better understanding. Now if you come here and you pick this element here, I actually want to click on this. So if you look at it, you see that you have h5 then element. Now, and I want to pick this, I want to click on this event, this element. All I need to do is to say okay. Now if you actually look at it, you see that unlike here where we have IDs, unlike here where we have ID, we have class, we have placeholder, you know, look at this. There's nothing like that here. So if we want to click on this section, what are we going to do? Supposing that, you know, all we've learned so far is using class, using IDs, you know, and all that. And we come here only for us to see H5 element. What are we going to do? In this place, you just use contains. That is actually what we do here. You just use the test. Just use the test available to you. And the test here is element. So all you need to do is to tell Cypress to go to the website and find a test that contains element. Then click on it if you want to click on it. That's all. So for contains, all you just need to do is to use the test. Use the test. Now for child selector, I don't want to treat this now because it will be more complicated. And as we move forward, there are some other things that I want us to go through first before we look at child selector. So let's just go through all of this for now. Okay, so what we'll now be doing is to start get our hands dirty, as we have learned. Now on the website, okay, we can just use this one now. I just hope that the server will run. Now if you look at this website, I want us to click on this, and let me go back. First, we're going to click on this, and then second, we'll click on this test box, and then we'll type in an input here. This is our task today. We'll type in John Doe here. Now let's go carry on the task. So first, we're going to click here. And how do we do that? We've already learned that we're going to use contains because there's no class, there's no ID. So all I just need to do is to use my pick and pick here. So I already have my element as test. So I'll come here. Of course, we're linking to the website. So I'll come here and say sci dot contains. You see it's already showing. So I'll click enter. And what am I containing? Elements. Now what do I want to happen? What action do I want? I want it to be clicked. I want it to be clicked. And that's all. Fine. I'll save. Now the next action, after I have clicked here, the next action is that I want this test box to be clicked. So I will also take my picker and come here. Now have a span and I have a class of tests. But let's see, if I use this class of tests, is it going to be unique? Let's use our group path. Class of test dot test. Wow, you see that it's not unique. It's not a single element. You see, we have 33 elements matching, so we can use it. So in that case, we're going to use contain. But if you look at it now, if you go through, you see that the only thing containing test box here is just this field. So we're going to use contain again. So I'll copy it. I'll come here. And okay, there's something I want to show you now. Now I want to duplicate this. For me to do that, I'll hold my shift and my alternate key down and then press the arrow down. That's just it. And then you hold your shift, alternate, then arrow down to drop it. So I'll paste this and save. So what I've just done here is that I've told Cypress, go find what is containing element, click. Go find what is containing this, click. Now the next we're going to do is having clicked this, we'll come to this page. Now let's go and pick again. What should we be looking at here? We're going to use ID because this ID is unique. If you look at it here, you use your group path, hashtag, username. We've already done that before. It's unique. So I'm going to come here now and say, now I'm not using contain. What I'm using now is sci.get because I want it to go and get something from me. So get what? An ID. And this is it. Hash that. Now what do I want Cypress to do? I want you to type. I'm not clicking. I'm typing. And what do I want to type? I want to type in John Doe. And that's it. Something is not right. Oh, sorry. I didn't put this in single quotation mark. Fine. Now you can use double if you want, but I prefer using single quotation mark. So now we'll save. and come to terminal. Let's run our test. npm run test. Okay, so this is our test. We're going to run it now. I just hope that the server is up and running. Okay, you can see the fine. Now you can see how fast that is. Do you see what just happened? It has done all the clicking and then type in John Doe. Look at it, John Doe. I wasn't the one who typed it. Cypress did that, you know. So that is actually the beauty of using Cypress to do your automation. And if you've done this, bravo. You've actually done a huge work today. Congratulations and happy testing. Thank you. See you in the next class.